Hey everybody, welcome back to another week of our Unreal Production Diary. There's Something Wrong with Mayo, a filmmaking journey in Unreal.
Yeah.
That's a long name. Uh,
Oh, my lights are off.
yeah, so I'm your host. Yeah, my light is off too. Let me turn it on. So I'm your host, Miguel Ortega, and this is my lovely co-host, Tran.
Hey, everyone.
And we're documenting the making of a short film in Unreal Engine. We did it last year. We're doing it again. Uh, we're having a very hard time with this one for many reasons, which we'll get into today. And but we have a set, which is pretty great. So, Tran, do you want to show some stuff?
Yeah, so it's I don't know how I would describe the stage of completion, but let me save all. Um,
Well, it's a first pass.
yeah,
Of
it's a decent first pass, I guess.
very good.
Let me hide this thing that covers my buttons, and I'll just play this. It's a little jerky. Is it jerky?
No, it's playing fine.
Pretty smooth. Yeah, so this is what we have so far.
That looks great.
Do you have, is there echoing? Okay.
James says no echo.
Yeah. Okay, so this is what I have so far, and I'm super tired. So I've been crunching for the past several weeks, pretty hard.
Do you have the fan turned on or anything like that?
No,
Your mic is noisy.
my mic is noisy.
Yeah.
Let's see. I do have noise suppression.
I don't hear it so much anymore.
Okay. But yeah, I don't have fans on hot because it adds a lot of noise to the stream. So anyway, yeah, so I've been really crunching all week. I'm super tired. So I'm really just trying to get it done and or at least a set, and then also at the same time trying to figure out what it looks like. We didn't have concept art for the set. I don't think concept art would have really helped because we would have spent all that time drawing stuff, and yeah, so it's like the same amount of time.
This kind of stuff, hey Bobby, you almost need to, like, even if you would have drawn this, you would have gotten demoralized by it unless you rendered it out so well that you may as well have just modeled it.
Yeah, and we need the lighting. We need to see how it works on that stuff. Because the reason why I'm like, yeah, there's no concept art is like, because we get asked that all the time. Do you guys have to make your concepts first and stuff? And
We have a ton of reference.
Yeah, we use a lot of reference, and that makes a big difference. But we don't do that because it just feels like a time suck, and then we're still going to probably change our mind once you start making it. so it's just like make it as you go. So that's part of the thing that's challenging, like just trying to figure out what it looks like, what's the design, and then actually trying to make it, and then trying to pull back, to the aesthetics, and it's like going around in circles. And then there's also like technical issues. So at one point we're like, yes, we're going to try to use the path tracer, and this is not the path tracer very clearly. It's all real time with Lumen.
Yeah, so what happened with that is Tran asked me to start lighting the scene, not this one here, an earlier one.
But an earlier version of this.
An earlier version of this. And I really quickly started realizing, like, holy shit, this is taking, not anything compared to like V-Ray or Arnold or anything like that, but you were starting to lose the whole purpose of doing this in Unreal to begin with. The quick iterations, the fun of it was completely gone, and it just felt like you're going back to the olden days. And we kind of started freaking out a little bit, and we're like, are we gonna get ourselves into trouble? Like we've already gotten ourselves into so much trouble on this project already. So
Yeah.
I think we bit off a lot like we usually do because we're idiots. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. We were smarter on the first one, where we're like, no reflective surfaces, and everything is like
Mega scans.
mega scans, and everything is like matte. Like
Yeah.
the material is super, super basic. There's no subsurface scattering. There's like, well, there was very little at the end. We didn't even have plants, really.
Yeah,
Like we,
they're all succulent.
yeah, we have like, I mean, maybe a shrub here and there, but I don't think
The
so.
distance.
Yeah, and then we had like trees. So maybe we had like 10 leaves in a shot.
Well, Bobby says, I like how you guys dig yourselves out of holes or out of troubles.
Yeah.
Well, tell us that once we dug ourselves out, because right now we're in it.
Yeah, we're
So-
we're in a pit right now.
Yeah, so the other issue that we had, and we'll come back to this in a minute. So they asked how long did it take to make this scene.
I don't know, probably longer than I want. There's a lot of time wasted. So I like
A lot of
you
it
know,
is just finding the aesthetic.
yeah. I went in circles. I spent time. So there's like
Do you want to show the room outside of the camera view?
yeah. Well, I don't know. Should I show Mayo or no? Or we get
You
to that?
could. No, I would just show it.
Okay, so it took a little bit longer, and it's not just the construction of the scene. It's a lot of it is like going how is this going to be lit, kind of scenario. So
The hair here, by the way, is not.
the hair looks like terrible.
Yeah, that broke when we went from lumen to path tracer to lumen.
Yeah, so we're having
Yeah.
some huge issues with hair. Should I make him bald?
No,
Okay, because I can hide the hair. We're having huge issues with the hair, but here's Mayo in the shot. I think he, aside from his terrible hair, his materials feel pretty good. You know, and I like his orange in the scene. There was a lot to figure out. So that's here, and that's where we're kind of in trouble right now on a technical level. So I spent the week trying to finish constructing the set. It's not so much modeling. There was definitely a lot of texturing going on. Like the windows relying a lot of texturing, and then I spent the week, and it's not just this week. It's in the past couple of weeks, troubleshooting technical things. So the big thing was going, okay, we can't do this in Path Tracer, and it's not really an easy switch to go. All right, so we just use Lumen and that's it, because Path Tracer looks completely.
it looks completely different.
It looks completely different.
Because that's what we thought for a moment. We're like, oh well, on certain shots we could turn on path tracer, and other ones you can't, and it looks like the equivalent to just using a completely different renderer back in the days in Maya, or even today. Like if you just jumped from V-Ray to Maya software render.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of maybe switch to mesh. Yeah, I totally agree. Looks awesome, except hair. Thanks. Looks unreal. Yeah, the hair looks like crap. That is the problem we're having right now. It's a very big problem. But yeah, so the Path Tracer and Lumen look completely different, and their shaders are different, and then the lighting is completely different. So it's like relighting and
Layer?
reshading everything. When you go from one to another, there's not like, I don't feel like there's a smart way to like use both of them at the same time or anything. And I also felt like the biggest benefit was getting Mayo's hair, and it wasn't really a benefit to the environment. Like I didn't feel the environments in our scenario benefit from that at all. Like we could get it to look just as good in Lumen. We also upgraded, so we started this project in 5.1, and this is 5.21, and I feel like lighting is easier. We struggle with lighting a lot in 5.0. Like it broke all the time, and I think there's some like, or it seemed easier, or I got better, but I think the tech got better because usually it's not me. So it didn't feel as difficult to light the environment. It's also an interior, which I think is much easier to light. So anyway, it's again redoing all the shaders and all that stuff. So I'll stop here and stop him from running, but I'll show what we have going on.
Wait, I wanted to show something real quick before you.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is just showing what the hair looks like in Path
You gotta
Tracer.
share your screen.
In Path Tracer versus Lumen. So you can see hair here feels very soft. Here it just feels like straw.
Yeah, it has a lot of, it's very dark. And the thing that I find, I mean, let's just, I don't know, since we're there, let's start on that topic.
Do you want to take over again?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's a huge difference. So, of course, I looked at a bunch of documentation, tutorials, and all that stuff, right? I didn't just like sit here and be like, oh, I don't know how to do it. So I've been trying. That's for sure. And the thing that I feel that is particularly tricky, or a couple of factors, is one, when the hair is really blonde, it doesn't behave like what we want. So like we're not trying to get like silky hair strands. So like if you Google, you know, if I were to Google blonde hair, right, and I just look at any examples of like this one, there's a type of metallic sheen, and when you look
But
carefully,
her hair is borderline white.
yeah, it's borderline white, but it still has a lot of darkening. It's still very shiny.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. But if you were to look at, well, we're not trying to do necessarily hair. We want something that feels fluffy. So like, what's something light and like fluffy cat? Let's see. Let's do fluffy white cat. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. And if you look at a cat, like, let's pull this over here. So I'm going to show this anyway. Right, it's so different. It's just soft versus like, you know, if we do this comparison, this feels like, as a material, it feels very reflective to me, right? It's very clearly anastrophic, whereas the cat doesn't feel so anastrophic in this thing. And there's a lot more light scattering coming on here. And
It almost feels like a cloud.
yeah, and then there is a lot more shadows. Now, I think if we were doing hair and we're just trying to do that, it would be fine. But what we're trying to do, like when Miguel showed the render, is we're trying to get hair to look like this. Now, if you're doing like a dark color hair, so right now his hair color is pretty light, but if I were to bring it down into like a dark tone, you know, it feels fine. So like I went and I looked at examples, all that stuff. And a lot of examples had like kind of medium brown hair to it, and it didn't feel like so metallic, right? Like when I change his hair color like this, it's not so bad. There's also a lot of things in the shader that don't seem to contribute much when we're using Lumen. So you have parameters like the backlighting. So if you look in here, if I increase my backlight, it's not doing much right now. Sorry, my scatter, right? So if you look at the material on top of this ball, the scatter seems to do something. Scatter doesn't do crap in here. Like, I'm so confused. And the specular doesn't do a lot. So specular is pretty pretty important because it controls the intensity of the reflection. The roughness seems to contribute, right? So if I have low roughness, we have this high spec thing. So like if this was a character with hair and it wasn't on top of this character and we weren't trying to make it fluffy, I would say shading feels pretty successful, especially when it's dark. Now if I bring the roughness up, it becomes more matte, right? But past a certain point, it just starts to get darker. The other thing with the hair is like if you don't light it, it looks very strange. So if I kill his lighting, it doesn't. It's actually okay right now when it's brown. But let's say I come back. Let's go do a couple undos. Also, sometimes when you do a lot of undos, you'll break everything. But let's see if I can get it back. Okay, so now I have him back to this light blonde. It looks pretty metallic. And if I kill the lighting on him, like what is that? Like it's so reflective. It's something very strange. I don't understand the shading. It's so different than when it's brown. Like it looks like metal. It looks like metal, right?
Yeah.
Right. Like why? Why is it doing that? And I tried all kinds of things. Let's kill our lighting.
Well, it just doesn't even make sense, right? Like, why would it be that reflective in such a dark spot of the room?
Yeah, so this is actually, I've killed a lot of the lighting here. So the lighting is actually come from the window, which is a material. It's very emissive. You see, it's responding how I think it would respond to his body, not to his hair. There is no HDR. I killed the directional light. I've killed all the lights, and I'm like, why is it so reflective? I just don't understand its behavior, and it only really behaves this way when the hair is very light. I'm not an expert in this, obvious, because if I was, I'd figure out what I would know how to fix this. But I do understand. I do
You
understand.
understand how it should look.
Yes, I do understand something, right? I'm not like a total noob to 3D or anything like that. So physically, it's just not working out. If our hair was darker, it would work. So this is the best I could get it. And it's just very odd, right? And again, if I kill the lights, it turns very metallic. And it's particularly when it's blonde. And again, a lot of these other parameters don't, like the scatter, which is basically what I would like it to do. If we then look at the example of like the cat, there's a lot of light scattering in there. When you're talking about a lot of strands, right? And here a little less, and that's why you have more shadows in here. So that's the thing. That's where that's at. I don't know what the solution is. Possible couple things that I've learned is blonde hair is trickier. Other thing I started to understand, how you light it is very important, especially when the hair is bright. If you don't light it, you get something like this. I could fix everything if I turn off every single light and let's kill all my lights. Let's kill my windows. Okay, cool. Let's kill
Maybe
that.
we should make a plot twist and make them bald.
Okay, so now I have no lights. Let's just put a key light. All right.
But actually, it actually looks accurate there.
Yes, but we're never going to light a scene like this.
I know.
So that's, maybe he should just be bald. But so our scene is never going to be lit like this, right? So then the hair is doing its thing. That looks correct. But, I don't think I'm asking it for a lot when I say, look, hey, I want some windows. So as soon as I turn on these emissive windows, you start reflecting in the hair. And again, the specular value in the material doesn't do anything. So normally in something like this, you could kill a speck in a regular material, but it does nothing. Doesn't change anything. Doesn't increase it. Doesn't take it out. So that's part of the problem. And the hair. And we're trying to get talk to some experts
At Epic.
at Epic themselves, that work at Epic, that are very senior, and then see what they say. And in my heart, I'm like, maybe the groom has to be changed. You know, the hair does lend itself to pick up more shadows, right? Like if we take a look, take a look at the groom by itself here. It is lending itself to pick up more shadowing, right? So the style is, the strands are slicked back. So I do have these thoughts in my head. You can really lose a lot of time trying to fix this. I mean, a lot. And that's why I've kind of just left it, because it is important detail, obviously. But now if we look at the way the strands are growing, they're going across the entire head, which is probably causing it to pick up more shadows. So the inner strands are doing all the same, right? So we have strands just rolling back. One solution I'm thinking in my head is that we just don't do that. That the strands, the pen sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. It decided to not work. Okay. That the strands are just shorter. And they're shorter, probably less shadows would be in there. So that is one thing that I'm thinking of doing. Right? And then maybe that could fix the problem. But again, I'm just leaving it here because you can lose a massive amount of time.
I wouldn't lose his hair. Bobby's saying, why don't we lose his hair? I think that the hair is such a part of what makes him different from the other characters. Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the thing, right? Like the creativity versus the technical. And then at the end, it's not like I know the answer for sure, right? Because I'm newer to hair. So do you want to throw in the towel
This early.
this early because I don't know something?
Well, that's why the Epic guys could probably help us.
Yeah. So is that really a smart move to do? It's better to try to find more answers, like find the answer and solution, even if it's harder than to keep trying to work around it so much. So I'll kind of show what the set looks like here. There are basic textures. So I have a very quilted rug. I'll pull this up in Maya. It'll be easier to see the model. These were made in Marvelous. These walls are all quilted too, made in Marvelous. So is the floor, so is the chair. And then these walls here. They have very, very basic textures applied. I don't think you can appreciate it under this lighting.
No, but remember that you have to let things settle.
Oh, I see. Yes, because it takes a while to update.
Like right now, it's just a blur.
Yeah, but let me frame it then.
Yeah.
So let me just hold it here.
So that's all geometry.
Yeah, these are all geometry. And they're quilted, right? So I was showing that last week. And, I'll show you here. Here's a chair I made. Right, it's all quilted. It's made in Marvelous. These are all cloth guys. So I made that, and then let's open this set, which is getting really gigantic. So it'll take a second to load. Tapestry Jedi chair. It is totally Jedi inspired.
Basically, it's totally Jedi Council inspired for sure.
Yeah, completely. Let's go. Let me just use default. And let's hide this here. This is the base mesh. So, this is where my time has been lost. And of course, it's very stressful. Very, very stressful. And I had built that part of the set first, which is time consuming to even make
That.
to make something like this. right? Like it's a very complex geometry. It is all polymodeled. All this stuff here. Had I known what it was going to be, I wouldn't have built something this with these complex surfaces. It would just been very simple. Obviously, the complex lines and all that stuff takes more time. And then what I ended up doing, or what we ended up deciding on, is missing some parts. Give me 1 second. Here we are. Making the walls feel more quilted and cloth-like. So if you go into Marvelous, I went to Marvelous and I quilted all the surfaces, for example, like that. You can see it, right, Miguel?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll show the rug. Rug wasn't, none of these are really hard, I would say. The biggest challenge was, like, what is this supposed to look like? Right, so I can't really see it very well in the shading. There we are. So pretty complex. Also a quilted rug that's in the scene. You can see that.
Yeah, zoom into it.
It's pretty detailed. It's not so bad. I basically did it like a section, like a pizza slice, and then I just duplicated it around. So it's radial, so you don't have to do a lot.
Yeah, but it totally sells it like it's this insane freaking pattern.
Yeah. I have this technique down. I can get it at this point pretty quickly. So, I'll show a version, some images. Let me just find them. And early renders here. And this was with Path Tracer, actually. So before we did that, we're like, well, what if this is, we had glass, right? So the windows were glass and wood surfaces like this. And this was with Path Tracer rendered.
So this is before the fabric. This is
where
original.
our changing point was. So, well, thank you for liking the environment, but it got completely covered up and changed.
Yeah, so remember, everything is supposed to look like it's made out of fabric. So this didn't work because we were deviating too far away from the story.
Yeah, so like the first idea was let's have crochet, right? And if you guys, I assume most people know, but let's say you're not in tune with knitting or crocheting, which is understandable. So crochet would be something like this. Everyone's seen something like that, right? And I was like, nah.
Like if we had unlimited budget, the way I would actually want to do this whole project would be to do all the sets with miniatures and do a bunch of crochet and do a bunch of stuff like this, and then just do the characters with CG. I think that would be
so
the best.
One of the biggest problems with say you choose something crochet is the scale. So we're doing like small guys, and so you're going to see a lot of fibers. Everything is going to have some kind of fur. If this was like life size and they were human size and you're doing human size crochet, it's not that bad. But once you scale in and you're very close, you have to have fur on everything. You need to have hairs and everything. And as you can see, I don't only have Mayo's hair figured out. I'm going to put hair in the entire set. So I was like, no, this is not a good idea. Let's not do that. And then we're like, okay, let's do fabric. We're like, well, you do fabric, and what does that look like? Let's do a fabric room. So you make a box, and then you just drape a bunch of fabric. Then it just looks like a sloppy tent. So we're like, okay, let's build this.
Which we did sloppy tents on the Voice in the Hollow.
Yeah,
And we didn't want that.
well, we don't want sloppy tents. We kind of wanted something a little bit more architectural. And so we went with this room, and then I textured it. And that, again, that's the time suck, right? So I lost time. Like I don't have these textures applied anymore. Lost time UVing it and texturing it, which it took time. Like seriously, it took time. And then like that doesn't work. And then the second thing we realized is like this glass is not working out very well. It's a pain. It's problematic. The wood is problematic
The glass
aesthetically.
meaning like the literal glass shader.
Yeah, like this glass shader. It's really slow. So glass is heavier to render, whatever you're using. I would say even in Lumen, it's not really worked out 100%. Like you can have glass. I'm not saying you can't, but it has a lot of limitations and a lot of things that you have to work around. Like basically translucent objects are not bulletproof yet in Unreal, and they're working on it, right? So that was a problem. And then the second problem was like, this path tracer is very slow. It's very hard to look dev. It was very hard to light. So then that's when we're like, I don't know. Let me just put cloth in the walls to see what happens. Like, I'm out of ideas. And I think that was actually Miguel's idea. Like, and I'm like, I just kind
No,
of.
we kind of said it at the same time. You know that?
Yeah, but I was like throwing out an idea, and I'm like, this sounds like a stupid idea. And Miguel was like, no, if you can get it to work.
Because I was I mean, she had just modeled this beautiful room, and I'm thinking, shit, just doesn't work for the story. It just looks it looks beautiful, but it doesn't work with this world of fabric, and I didn't want to say that. So then the minute she suggested, I'm like, yes, do it.
Yeah, and it's like, it's fine. I can do it.
Yeah.
It's, the time suck was just, I didn't need to construct it as well. We did ended up keeping this as wood and these part of the frames as mirrors there. And, if we jump back in here, these are not, it's still really dark. So the set is not really going to be fully lit. I don't plan for it to be fully lit. It's going to be lit per shot, if that makes sense. So once, if you look at this and when we get into the shot, oops, I didn't mean to make a camera. Press the wrong button. Here we are. Now it doesn't feel so dark, right? So it's going to be lit shot by shot basis.
And this is a classroom, just so everyone knows.
Yeah. You can see the rug, and there's these chairs, which are all dark and weird. What I did learn when you're working with Unreal and you're working with Lumen, you need to light your surfaces. If you leave things in the shadow, they kind of have this weird effect where they look like they're floating in space, if that makes sense. Like they don't feel grounded in the environment, like this right here, right? They don't quite feel like they're sitting in there for me. But once you cast a light on a surface, it's going to work. The floor is going to be super simple. It just has some kind of pattern that I found on Sepsis Painter. We did try to throw in something more complex, but it created a lot of conflict with the rest of the set. So let me just hide some parts. Let me hide the chairs and the rug. Let's just hide that. And let's hide the character. All right. I'll just close this. There we are. Okay. So second thing was the windows, which took quite a bit of time. Glass is really problematic, right? I would just say maybe not demonstrate it. It does not, there's a lot of problems with glass. It does not like easily by default allow light to pass through correctly into the scene. So if I were to hide these windows, okay, and we just take a look at something like this, I have an outside environment, and then I have this being reflected through, right? If you put glass, it does not reflect correctly. you can adjust your settings and you can get a reflection to show up. The problem is there was no color, right? So you would see a reflection shape, and it wouldn't reflect any of this intense color that's on the stained glass. So it would just be like white, and it doesn't make any sense. And part of what looks really nice, in my opinion, when I look at something like this, very basic, is the reflection coming back into the set, right? So we're getting a lot of color here. So I ditched the glass, and I just looked at reference. And it's like, when you think about stained glass, do we actually see through stained glass, or is it really just a glow kind of effect, right? So I pulled up a bunch of references of real locations with stained glass, and they really just feel like very emissive. Like, I don't know what I Googled. Best stained glass room. Let's see. Because if you just type stained glass, you'll get something like Michael's. Yeah. Right. So like some Michael's stuff.
Oh, with Michael's.
Is that where we're going? Or like close-ups. But what I really wanted to see like was something like this. So let's pull this reference in. Let's pull this one. And even let's pull this one. Now, if I look at this, I don't really know what's going on outside. There's a little bit of shadowing, suggestions of building. It's so minor, though. It's like barely even noticeable. They really just look like they're emitting light. They're just emissive. You have the sun coming through, right? But that's it. So do I really need something refractive?
And that's also one that is facing the sun literally directly as it's down at almost eye level, right? Like
Yeah.
Most of them, you're not going to get it to blow out that much. Like, look at the dark blues on the one that you have there. You can't tell where the hell the sun is.
No. So when you look like this, they're just glowing. They just are, again, just very emissive. Right, so we're just looking at the behavior of that. I definitely looked a lot at this one. Like if you Google, best stained glass room or most amazing stained glass space, this building will pop up because that is really impressive. The other thing I noticed is that there's a lot of detail. And, as much as this set felt detailed, it was not detailed enough. Okay. Like when I made this, I'm like, this is detailed, right? And like, yeah, right. And like, no, not really. You need more detail. And so that was another problem I would say that I had. So of course I didn't plan for that. So because I didn't plan for that, I had the texture around this. And I'm like, like if I didn't have this, and this is the window I'm working with, texturing's easy because you just put whatever you want in this big blank empty space. But now I have this, and I have to make sure whatever texture I put in there
Goes with that pattern.
goes with whatever this is. So that slowed me down, right? So those are the things that I lost time on. You can say it's poor planning, or just saying no planning, or just I didn't know what I was doing. That's probably I didn't know, right? So then you can see here, I did eventually get to work. I tried different things. I definitely tried, if I look at this, trying to get it to flow with these little circle shapes. I even quilted the windows. So I have a version where I have it, try to get light to go through it. It looked really stupid. so that didn't work. And eventually I did realize the aesthetic that works best is more long, straight lines, kind of cut through, and it seems to be fine, right? Like if you see here, also long lines that cut through. This one's pretty complex. Let's take a look. Like that, right? I mean, you can see it clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of worked. And this did take time. So the first one was the first window I did was this one over here, which was slow. But once I got that, these guys moved very quickly. It's again figuring out how to do that, and I don't think concept art would really help me in that way. And then so the missive thing got fixed the reflections, right? So because it's a basic material, it shows up in the reflection on the floor. And then the second thing is trying to get light to cast through. And again, with something glass or refractive, you're still not getting it really correct. So the trick that everyone does is they just use light functions. So basically,
You want to know how you added color or variation on the glass. This is a texture.
yeah, this is completely just a texture. So if I show you, let's open this up. If this opens,
Looks like a butterfly when you see it like that.
yeah, it's very butterfly, which I don't know if that was
Monarch.
conflicting. So that is the texture itself, just like that. It has a lot of breakup, so that the light passes through not so flat and less consistent.
As they really are.
Yeah. I also changed my UVs. So I did one thing right. I did pre-plan a little bit better. So then my light here, let's say, I'll just pull this one. And this will pull up the light function.
Qasim, you're not interrupting at all. You could ask as many questions as you want.
Yeah, we'll just look and we'll respond. So here, this texture comes completely from this texture. The only thing is I stretched it out and blurred it in Photoshop. When I exported it, I just exported it with the ambient occlusion pass on top, and so it made it dark. And then what that did was gave me a texture to put in the light function. So these are just spotlights right here. And the one thing that's kind of a pain, I would say, let me just hide these. Okay, so I hid most of them.
So it's a total cheat. No light is coming through those windows.
Yeah, and the thing that you have to do is you do have to distort the texture. So if you look at one here, this is one distortion. And let me just pull another one that's distorted. And then here's that same one, zoom out, that's been warped because the light is going to warp. If you just have it perfectly straight, it's not going to be believable, right? So that is a distorted version of this one here. The second thing that makes it tricky is I want color. So if I pull this up, you actually need to have 3 lights for each channel. So here's a blue light, and then the green, and then we add the red, and then we finally get the color. And that's because light functions
Pain in the ass.
Do not support color maps, right? So each one of these lights, the green light is 100% green.
So those 3 lights are 9 lights.
Yeah, right? The red light's 100% red, and the blue light is 100% blue. And then the material that I had to set up for this, if I pull up here, is it's still reading this one color map, but it has a channel switch. So I can turn on red, green, or blue. And the blue light will have the blue channel turned on, same thing with the green and the red. So that was pretty simple. All you need to do is just create a component mask node, and that's it. And just turn it into a parameter, and you'll get that look. Also, this is a trick that a lot of people use. So I'm not breaking it down super detailed, but you'll find a ton of tutorials on that if you're interested in that. And then that left me with this, right? So I have something like that, and then different light functions. And then as it moves further away, so it is blurrier. So like examples, like the light functions for these small windows are very blurry, and these ones down here are sharper. And that wasn't so hard to figure out. But once I figured that out, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. These guys don't have any light functions yet. I just decided I don't want to do it right now. I don't know the lighting in the scene.
You know what? There's so much light in that room right now. The reflections and everything, like you almost can't tell first glance.
that it's there or not. Yeah.
Like once you point it out, then you look over and you're like, oh yeah, it's not there, of course. But in the shot, you
You,
may never even.
no, you may never really know. I will make them later. I did cap off the ceiling. So this is going to also be stained glass, right? So there will be an emissive on top. So that's, where I'm at with this. Anyway, other thing,
Put the. Oh, sorry. Go for it.
go ahead.
No, no, no.
Hold on. Let me just show stuff. Okay. And let me open the sequence again. So again, big lesson I learned from the first project is if you don't put lights on stuff, even your shadows need lights. It all feels floaty. So right now it doesn't, once I put the sets in here and the objects, it doesn't really feel to me that nice. But it's fine because once I put a light on top, like if you look here, it starts to feel like more tangible, right? And then on caught here, I just put the stained glass. So let's just hide some of his lights. Okay, so that's him. If I just throw him in here, he looks weird. But as soon as I go, okay, he gets a light on him. And I had to reshade him for Lumen because his settings are different.
Oh, he looks much better.
And then there's a rim light. That one kind of looks weird, but okay.
Someone is asking if you know where you found the tutorials for that lighting.
Excuse me, which they find about glass light? No, about light function stained glass. So if you just like look up on YouTube Unreal stained glass lighting, it will just tell you to make material functions. And I'll go into that in a second then, just to show you. So you can see it's very, very simple. And then here I have the light function on him, which makes it look like that, And then when you're seeing the shot, he is moving through the light, and that makes it feel more dynamic. Now,
it adds a lot.
Yeah. Now the windows do get blurry. It's fine because if I didn't put all that detail into the texture, this blur would not look that complex, right? So it, to me, I don't care because the texture itself and the effort is paying off. The other thing that I had to figure out was how to do a more shallow depth of field because these guys are life size. So let's say I create a new camera and I'm looking through this camera. Right, let's say I do like similar focal length here. And let's just adjust this. I don't see it. Oh, here it is. So let's put him in focus right here. So this is like a standard camera. You can see a lot of the environment. I don't know, you can tell it through the stream. It's very in focus, right? Which doesn't give it the miniature look. So if you look at like any kind of miniature look, let's get away from the cat. I don't know. Let's type miniature character. Maybe we'll see something. No.
Put toy photography. That's always.
Okay, toy photography. Here we are.
I mean, you can see it like even on the top right one.
You can see it here with these Lego guys.
Yeah.
Okay, let's pull this one up here. So this really feels like really small, right? And that's because look how like he's in focus and these objects are not that far from him and they're completely out of focus. So what's the technical term for that? It has a lot of shallow.
Shallow depth of field.
Would you say that's a lot?
Shallow is that it's
More shallow?
Depth of field literally means the part that is in focus. So when you say you want more depth of field, you're actually saying you want everything in focus. So shallow depth of field means that you can see the distance from a Boba Fett to the skeleton is very shallow. It's like a volume, right? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a shallow depth of field.
Okay, so it's a shallow depth of field. I'll say it correctly because I don't want to say more depth of field, which is incorrect.
Even I mean, we say that, but yeah.
Everybody says it all the time.
Yeah.
And that's not what's happening here. Like the environment, everything is actually pretty in focus. With the default camera, let's say
So it feels life size, as in
Yeah.
human size.
So even if I try pushing it, if you have a longer focal length, so by default it's let's just undo that. Never mind. It's like 35 or something, and now I just made it 100. Okay, so 100 was maybe too much. Let's say 55, and I want to frame the shot, right? So now I have something like what I have in the other one. Let's try 60, because the longer the focal length, the more it's going to go out of focus. And let's get his face, the plane on his face.
I don't think I've ever used that purple thing in my entire life.
I totally need to use it.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's going.
That's funny.
I use it. So now
That's good.
he's supposed to be in focus. And then the lower the aperture is, the more it's going to go, right? So like, let's say my aperture, I try to lower it as much as I can. Right now it's 1.2. So that's as much as I'm getting out of focus. And I can't get it any further. So I watch tutorials on this one. And there's a lot on this one. You can just Google Unreal Engine tilt shift, which is popular, right? So the answer to this was to change the film back. So by default, it's 16 by 9 digital film. And if we use the IMAX, and I need your terminology here because you understand.
That just basically means the size of the size of the film sensor, or if it was traditional, the size of the film stock.
Okay, yeah. So this IMAX would allow more shallow depth of field. The aspect ratio is now square, but you can change it in the sensor width and height. So if, let's say I change the cropping from 70-35, which is now 1:2, right? And I didn't come up with this. I can also increase the focal length. So now if I want a shot to be similar to what I had, I could set this, let's just make up a number, 130, for example, like that. And you can really see it's starting to, it's a lot more out of focus. And then,
even though when you had it at 130 before, it took you out of the room.
Yeah, it took me out of the room. So it completely changed that. And from here, it's already more out of focus. The second thing that you can do is you can see my aperture. It's at 1.2. And let's say I set it to 12. Everything starts to come into focus. If I set it to 20, which is weird, everything is like really sharp and it looks like a game, right? And again, the lower the number, so I go 1.2, it gives me something more. But let's say I want to push it further, I need to lower my aperture more, and I can't. But if you go into your lens setting and you go minimum f-stop, and you set your minimum to 0, that will allow you to go really, really low values. So now I can.
Which is physically impossible almost. Like to have an f-stop at 0.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's physically impossible, but it would be financially improbable.
Yeah. So now here, everything is going out of focus. You can see like in his face. Let's change that. So let's put this eye in focus. Right, so his eye is in focus, but look at the balls around him. They're really going out of focus. So, it now looks like he's like this size. Our characters are bigger than Lego guys too.
Yeah, they're bigger.
Like Lego guys are like
Lego guys are tiny. Our guys are like 12th scale action figures.
Lego guys are the size of the tip of my thumb, like half of my thumb.
Ours are like Marvel Legends.
You have to know toys to know what that means.
Or Black Series Star Wars.
Yeah, so that solved that problem. So that was like great. That wasn't so hard to figure out. I did not know this before, and there was a lot of information on that. So that's nice. Now we have a lot of flexibility. Of course, we didn't go with that. We went with, something like this. So here it's at 2, but if we want, I can lower that. And the environment blurs out, which I don't care. Because I think the effort still pays off in its way, right? It will pay off in a different shot in some way. So that's again where it's at. And then just answering the question someone had, it's pretty easy to create a light function. So let me just make something somewhere. I'll just make a new folder. I'll call it demo, so I can delete it later. All you have to do is create a material. I'll just leave it as new material. And when you create this master, you want to do a couple of things. You want to select what's here, and you want to change material domain to light function. So there's material domain, change that to light function, and now you can put in the lights. The only control you have is the emissive color, right? So let's drag this texture in. Let me find that. I'll find this one here. Okay, so now I have this texture. Let's plug that into the emissive. And then we have this color. Now, if you plug it in like this, I'll show you what happens. Let's just save. So it's super basic. We have a color texture into the emissive, which is the only active slot. And I'll create a new light. Let me just hide these lights. And let's hide this rug. And let's put in a spotlight. Okay, so I have my spotlight here. And let's put in this super basic material function. So in this light, under the details, you just have to find light function, again, under the details of the light. And you just drop in your material light function. And it's kind of hard to see. I will increase the intensity. Let's do this at 300. Okay, so now we can see that pretty clear. And although we have a color map,
It's black and white. Yeah.
it's black and white, right? Because your light color is controlled here. So you can tint this, but
It's funny. It works exactly the way channels work in Photoshop, like the way like old Technicolor works. Like
Yeah.
It's 3 black and white images with a filter.
yeah, so the only thing you can do is you can color this one flat color, but you can't put a texture in here. So that's why you have that workaround. So what you have to do is you have to create 3 different lights, each one red, green, and blue. So to do that, you just want to create something as simple as a component mask, right? And activate RGB. So now I have the ability to turn on and off my red, green, blue channel over here. And I just put this in here, convert this to a parameter. And I'll call this, channel switch. And then let's plug it in here. And just so you can see what's happening in here, I have RGB on. Let's say I'll only have red, right? It will look different than blue. You can see, there's more blue in here. And it's, green, and that's blue. Okay, so now we're looking at our RGB channels, just like how you can in Photoshop. Once you convert it to parameter, and what you want to do is take your material, don't use the master, you need a material instance so you can control which channel you're turning on, right? Second thing I probably wanted to do was convert my texture sample also to parameter so we can change it. So let's just call this color map. And let's just save that. And so now I just have a slot to drop that in, and now I have slots to change the switch. So let's say this one's red, and I take this light, I set this to red, and I put the material in that only has the red channel on. Okay, so let me label this. I'll just call it red, so I know what it is. And in this light, we drop in the material that only has the red channel on. I will now duplicate that, and let's call this green. And let's duplicate it again and create a blue one. And let's open these on. So in the blue one, I'll just check the blue check mark. Green one, just check the green check mark. And we'll save this. Although I probably shouldn't save anything. And then this one light here. Is it this light? Okay, it is this light. Just duplicate this a few times. 2 more times. And let's say here in the spotlight, I don't know which one. Let's say this is the green channel because I didn't label these. So I'll put the green material function. And the other thing you have to do once you put that in, you need to change this to be 100% green. So now we're getting some color. And then in the third light, let's change that to 100% blue. Right? And then put in the material function that only has the blue channel on. There we are. And now we have that color map. That's it. It's pretty simple. I liked simple. I'm like, oh, okay. Simple is good. Let's not do anything too complicated.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah. Just delete that. So that's all you got to do for that. And let's just expose that. And then just spend your time warping it so it doesn't look so flat and straight. And you should blur it because the light will not be sharp. So it's just using your eye from that point. Let's see. Again, it was, if you know this, if I knew all the answers like this from the beginning, it's pretty easy. I don't know. I haven't done stained glass. I don't think I've, on any of our personal projects, we've ever had really stained glass.
No.
So we're like, on a technical level, it's not difficult, but it just takes a little bit of time to
nail it.
Well, try different approaches. Try to do it the fanciest way, and the simplest way worked out the best, which is just using an emissive material. So the window has no glass. It's just a texture that glows, right?
It does actually feel like it's coming from behind. I mean, it really works.
Yeah.
And technically, if you wanted to have more complexity, you could, in the shader, multiply some black and white map to give the illusion that some areas are hotter than others.
Yeah. Well, that's why here, if you see there's these streaks, there's a little bit of breakup. I try to make sure it's not that flat. I think.
No, but I mean, if you wanted it to feel like the sun is in a particular spot.
Oh yeah.
You could totally just molt it.
Yeah, you could put a mask on top, like what Miguel is saying, and multiply that and have it exceed values of 1.
You might the thing that might give it away is the lack of parallax.
Yeah, that's true, but most people won't pay attention.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have a shot staring at the window, and then you can see these textures here. This was I used a new tool in Substance. I don't know if you wanted to show some stuff.
No, the stuff that I worked on this week was really boring and super important, but super boring.
Difficult. I would say probably the most difficult part. I would say this week was aesthetically successful, right? What we have here is more of a color palette, orange and blue, which is not brand new or anything like that. But I like it, plus lots of grays in there. So gray, orange, and blue. The lighting is orange and blue, which is very different than saying your set is orange and blue. Here, this was I don't know, it's supposed to be brown and green, and it was really weird. Again, that was Path Tracer. I think this looks better.
Yeah.
Palette-wise. So successful there. The hair still sucks. We're just putting that aside. I will show some tools here that I use in Substance, which I still wish it had another tool. Like for anyone who uses like Procreate, if you do a brush stroke and you try and do curves and it could do like something really smooth, you don't have that in Substance. Like you cry a little bit when you want to do something like that. Let's see if I can open.
My monitor's too big.
Your monitor's too big?
Yeah.
Let's do a new scene. So I'm using just a standard. And I'll just import like a window. Yeah, Substance is fun. But there's a new tool in this version that really helped with the stained glass. All right, so let's go over here. I have my window here. So what I started using, let's put like a background. Let's make this blue-ish. And I'll just make the other one red so we can see it clearly. And I'll put a black mask. Just add a paint. There's a new path tool, right? So if I just start drawing, I can get like something really nice, and I can edit it afterward. That's really fat, but you can see here it's really flexible. So if I change my brush to 1, I can also change the hardness. So I can make it really sharp. Right? You can also use different brushes. So I was really digging this. You could put stitches. I didn't try to do stitches or anything like that. But I can change the brush. It's pretty simple. Let's say you leave that tool. You go back in it, you have the curve, and you're in the path tool.
It's like a live trace curve brush.
Yeah. You can select it. Once I select it, I can change the brush. Right? So it is just pretty amazingly well done. You can change the spacing, and again, I can change the size. Right? So I can, whatever I'm doing in my brush setting it's just going to propagate over. I just stuck to a hard brush because I just needed lines. So that's why it's not very fancy. But I can edit it. So now I can come back in here. I can do something like that. If I double click, I can just add a point. Actually, just click. If you double click, you can change it from a hard edge, sharp edge like that. And then let's say you want to close it. There's a button up here that allows you to close it. So you can do something like that, which is really nice.
You're asking why you're using ACES, sRGB.
Because that's supposed to be closest to Unreal. That is the color space that is set up in the project settings by default. Something like that. Do I think it matches 100%? Not really. Because once you get into lighting and everything, it all changes. But that's, that was the trick there. You can also turn on mirroring. So if you have your mirroring on, it just mirrors over. Like, it's pretty amazing. Let's say I didn't do, I did all this work. I forgot to turn on mirroring. And I come over here. I start another one here. And they don't all have to be the same, right? So I can say this one is really fat like that or whatever. And I forgot to mirror. I just turn mirroring on. And then you click on the curve and turn the mirror on, and it would just mirror over. So it's really awesome. It's so like editable, fixable. I really, really like that. It's pretty nice. I didn't always have mirroring on, so one thing I did do, let's just say I had something pretty complicated. That's the wrong one. Let's add paint here. And And let's make this fatter so we can see it. Okay, so I have that, and let's start another path. And it's not mirror. Actually, I was trying to turn mirror off. And this is handy, like let's say you're not using only the path tracer. You're doing a lot of complex stuff, like you're doing hand brush stuff. So I have this pattern. I think I need something a little bit more. So I can just swap and change that. I really like this tool. This new tool is really incredible. Okay, so let's pretend I did so much work. Okay, and I'll put another color just so it looks a little bit more complex. Let's make something yellow, and then I'll paint. And it's just to show you what happens when you have multiple layers. And I did something like really cool here. Oh. Okay, so it's my awesome paint job. But you know, I could have many layers. I only have 2. But this will work on multiple layers. And I forgot to mirror the other side. And now it's a mess, and I don't want to repaint that, and I didn't use the path tracer for everything. What you can do is you can create a paintable layer and set whatever you want to mirror. So let's say my base color, do pass through. It's normally set to that, normal. And then we have to just drop an anchor here. And then you can create a new fill, and I only want the color. And in that fill, you can drop the anchor we just created, and you can go into your tiling, set to -1. And then you just have to mask the other side. So here, I want it to show up on that side only. Let's just use the polyfill. This is sloppy. That's okay. I did the wrong side. Hold on. I'm pretty tired. I've been sleeping very, very little. So is Miguel. So now what's happening here is this side is this layer, because I captured it through the pass-through, put an anchor, and I reloaded it here. And what I did was just mirror it over by -1 scale. But it will always update. You probably don't want to do this maybe necessarily all the time. But this will get you really complex mirroring on many levels. I can add another fill layer. Let's make this one purple. And I'll add a black mask. And let's say I use like a texture this time. Let's put this checker in. There we are. Okay. And this checker has a certain behavior, like this. But you can see it's mirroring. So I use this a lot. It's like using a kaleidoscope.
Someone said you could use a mirror filter also.
You can. I did try to use that. I found this one worked best for me. But yeah, a mirror filter or -1. I decided just to
This
use.
is the way you usually like model anyway.
Yeah. So that's how I created my stained glass. So I had that set up, and you know, I tried to pull lines. So for example, this might not be the best texture. This is also not the best texture. But for example, maybe, you know, I have something like that. And just something very graphic, just a bunch of lines. And I'll get something from that. Let's try something else. But you can get really creative. Let's see if there's anything curvy. No. Let's put this anisotropic one in. Gives me these strange lines. Let's bump up the contrast. Let's scale this up. And now I have these lines, right? And you can see it's mirroring over. I can duplicate that. And let's screen this. So that allows me another layer. You know, I could put some other pattern in, for example. Something like that. That's how I think. I know it doesn't really look great, but that's how I can get a pattern very quick. Drawing it, try and find textures that are just lines. And then as I move it, maybe this is not the best purple. Let's make it black.
They asked if you change the color space in the Unreal project.
No. Color space is by default. Yeah, it is Rec 709. I am not caught up in color space with Unreal at all. I was in the beginning, and I felt it doesn't matter because everything gets color corrected and changed so much the material and lighting that it doesn't matter to me. I know it's supposed to matter, but for me, the way I've been working, it does not matter. Once it goes into lighting, it just changes how everything looks. So that's what I've been doing there. And I don't know if you want to talk about anything.
No, I mean, I think the stuff that we were dealing with this week also was just a script. We were a little conflicted on where it's at the moment. Like, it just feels like it's just getting longer and longer. Not the script necessarily, but the amount of things we need in order to execute it correctly. And we're like, oh my God, like, we're actually thinking about going back and just rewriting the script to just make it very, very, very simple, because this project has become so ambitious that at the state that the script is at, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, so we're both really stressed out about that. Like, Miguel is handling the script more, and I would like to be part of that more, because two heads are better than one.
And I would like to be part of more of the 3D, but
yeah, and I need him. Part of like where you see me struggling a lot is because I don't have him, right? Like when if I have Miguel helping me out, like if his mind was more on the set, I would have gotten the set done faster.
Yeah, but the thing is, we the big mistake we did on this project is we did not have the script ready when we started, and that's been a big
yeah, it's been screwing us up like
time.
A lot, because decision making choices, as you saw, like with the set, I have a wood version. Did that wood version take me a while? It absolutely took me a while to make that, and I wasted time doing all that. And I know I wouldn't have wasted that time if there were two brains on that instead of spinning around in circles, right?
Yeah. So they're asking if there's no glass parameter. There is, but the thing is that in order to get that, it was with the path tracer, and it took a very long time to render.
Yeah.
So this just was, realized it didn't need it.
Well, you can do glass and lumen. Glass is like a translucent material, and translucent materials are more problematic. Having them go out of focus, you have problems having them show up in reflections. There's problems having light pass through it correctly. There's also problems. So it's very problematic. It's just not really worth it. We can get the same result with an emissive material that behaves more correctly. And I don't think you can tell. You don't go, oh, that looks like a shitty emissive material instead of glass. It looked practically the same. I did do a test, and it's not worth it. It looked worse because it wasn't showing up in the reflections.
Yeah.
And do we want to go down that path of troubleshooting translucent materials? Like, no, because we have to figure out the hair. So there's a lot of, there's, like what Miguel was saying, there's a lot of stress. We're both super stressed out. We're both sleeping very little. My schedule is really messed up. Like, for the past couple of weeks, I have been, I'm not complaining or anything or trying to be down. Just so you guys know, this is just how it is. So, and I always know that's how it is. That's just the life of when you're trying to do your own projects. But I have been waking up like at 12 and going to sleep at like 5, 6 in the morning. Like that's my hours.
The cool thing is Dell sent us a crazy powerful computer with a lot of graphics cards that we still haven't set up. But yeah, we got to get that up and running.
Yeah, there's just so much to do.
Yeah.
And Miguel and I think we really function as like one mind. So without him, without me being on the story.
On the story, and then me being on the 3D. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know I definitely feel like the slowdown. Like what does this look like? Those things came so fast in Voice in the Hollow because we had the script. It wasn't. I wouldn't say it was perfect, but it was like structurally, we knew that's what we wanted.
Yeah.
And then we were able to just really be in sync. Like we are like a team that is very like one person's the other half, right? Mm-hmm. Like not to be cheesy or anything like that.
Half a brain.
Yeah, I have half.
I may have a quarter.
Well, we both have half, and then
Yeah.
we make up one proper mind.
Yeah.
That is more powerful, and now we're just cut in half, and it's that's a huge part of the stress.
Yeah, but hopefully we'll figure that out, and then we'll do a breakdown on the script stuff. We just haven't done it because we don't want to show it at this stage.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not at this stage. Like, it's technically all there, but we're just doubting whether it's the right story.
Yeah, we have experience with this, and you can see the landmines ahead.
Yeah.
And like you just know when something is not feeling right.
Yeah.
So we do have a script, we do have all that stuff, but do
we have like
have
5 scripts.
Yeah. There's also like the pressure of like we have all these characters. We started making commitments, right? So the moment you build a character and you start building a set,
That character has to be in the fucking movie now.
Yeah, you committed to it. You got rigged.
Whereas if you were still writing it, you'd be like, we don't really need that guy, or we don't really need that. You know what? Let's do it outside, but we already spent a month on this room, so we better make it fit in the room.
Yeah, so we settled, we made hard, firm choices visually
before we were ready to.
And there's this pressure that you feel like you've committed to that. That's it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing it does to you psychologically, which is really bad, is like it makes you want to believe what you're doing is like good, right? So like when you just have something on paper, you can just say, you can see things more clearly because you don't have this weight of, I have this character, I have to use it. And the moment you do, you go, this character's great, right? Like he's awesome, right?
Better be awesome.
Yeah, that set is awesome, right? Like this is the set we want, right? So in your mind, you're kind of there's a lie that you tell yourself, and so there's just like this mind games, right? So we have a lot of head demons right now.
Yeah.
And these like psychological mind games. Ultimately, like what everybody says is true. It comes down to like, do you believe in your story, and all that stuff.
And that's the problem is we're not sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we're not going to do these little guys, but we're even uncertain about the name. Like we're just uncertain about all of it. Like as we change the character, all of a sudden, is there something wrong with Mayo? Is that almost insulting to?
Is a poor title choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're trying to, yeah. That's kind of like subconsciously why we were, not subconsciously, I mean, that's why we kept the name Untitled for so long, is because we felt that we weren't ready to necessarily give it a set name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, if
So really, there's something wrong with us. It's not there's something wrong with Mayo.
there's definitely something wrong with us.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, it's tough. You're like, this is good, right? But the thing is, right, you can lie to yourself all you want. Once you put it out there, no one's going to lie to you.
yeah.
Maybe people won't hate it, but they won't like it. And then that is the worst thing that you could do to yourself is spend all this time and you lie to yourself all this time, right? That this was good.
The cool thing is, Voice in the Hollow got into a bunch of film festivals. So, but that, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that's it for this week. So
Yeah, and we're not abandoning these characters. Like
no, we love them.
we love the
We
characters.
just want to do them justice, is what it is.
I see potential in the look, and the art direction, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The only thing, you know, technically the biggest hurdle is the hair.
Yeah,
But this time we do get. I mean, there's some upsides. Like we're able to get some help from Epic, which is amazing.
yeah,
So, you know, just someone like to give a guiding hand would be awesome.
yeah.
So on the technical stuff. So yeah.
So, all right, guys. So we'll see you next week. You can follow us on Instagram and YouTube, our own channels. That's where we post some other stuff. Of course, follow the Gnomon channel. But if you want to follow our stuff, that's it right there. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks to Gnomon, like always.
Yes.
And
Thank you so much for making this all possible, giving us opportunity. And you know, again, none of this stuff is it's not meant to be downer. That's just it's how it is.
yeah.
It's just how it is.
if you don't question it, question whether you're doing the right thing, story-wise or art direction or whatever, it's probably not a good thing.
Yeah, and I think everyone that's tunes in onto this, are probably all artists. It's the same, whatever it is, whether it's a painting,
Yeah.
or a story that you're trying to tell. Yeah, same problems, similar-ish. Yeah.
All right, guys. To see you next week.
See ya.
Later. Bye-bye.
Bye.